Alright, YouTube, this is the Cronos New Dawn. It's a review. This is GameSpot though. It's my first time ever looking
Coming
at,
off the Silent Hill.
this is my first time ever doing a reaction to a review. And also, I usually don't look at GameSpot reviews. I usually do IGN.
2 remake.
So,
The
this is
biggest
all brand
question
new.
I had for Bloober Team was whether the studio off
Wait.
the Silent Hill 2 remake. The biggest
Okay,
question
so
I
they
had
made
for
Silent Hill
Bloober
2
Team was whether the studio
remake.
had fully reversed course. Once a developer of middling or worse horror games, Silent Hill 2 was a revelation. But it was also a beneficiary of a tremendously helpful blueprint.
Great
The game
remaster.
it remade was a masterpiece to begin with. Could the team make similar magic with a game entirely of its own creation? Cronos: The New Dawn tells me it can. While it doesn't achieve the incredible heights of the Konami remake, Cronos earns its own name in the genre with an intense sci-fi horror story that will do well to satisfy anyone's horror fix.
I don't know how GameSpot does their their rating system, but it sounded like an 8 to me.
Provided they can
That's
stomach
just
some of its brutal enemy
guess.
encounters.
Played 20 hours. Oh my goodness.
Cronos: The New Dawn looks and feels like the middle ground between Resident Evil and Dead Space. Played in third person and starring a character who moves with a noticeable heft that keeps them feeling vulnerable, it's a game that at no points gets easy in its 16 to 20 hour story. All the hallmarks of a classic survival horror game are here, from its long list of different enemy types that demand specific tactics to a serious
I really
commitment
love
to
the
managing a
flamethrower on
very
here.
limited inventory, and especially to the feeling of routinely limping to the next safe room, where the signature music becomes the soundtrack to your brief moments of respite before you trek back into the untold horrors that await you.
Traveler's outpost. Paving the path has begun.
Cronos is set mostly in the future, decades after a pandemic referred to as the Change has left most of the world in shambles.
Change.
Mutated monsters called orphans roam the abandoned lands of Poland, which fell before the Iron Curtain did in this alternate history tale. As the Traveler, you'll move through time, extracting the consciousness of key figures who might help you work out how the change occurred and how to fix things. The story's impact is stunted by the main
pretty
character's
cool.
attire, which looks like an all-metal blend of a spacesuit and a diving suit, completely obscuring her face at all times. This, coupled with her cold, almost robotic delivery, made it hard for the game to emotionally resonate with me.
See? What's my boy name that was coming at me for? Nah, shout out to him on my reaction to some Chronos gameplay. Yeah, I didn't. Man, I guess he felt the same way about the AI voice in the suit, the same as me. It didn't resonate with me either.
I am fit to proceed with my purpose.
Though, like most good stories, the inverted triangle shrinks from big picture problems down to an interpersonal level. It does, by the end, achieve something closer to emotional weight. Still, while the narrative specifics sometimes miss their mark, the setting helped keep me invested. I love a good time travel story, and Cronos' saga combines Chronobergian body horror with mental mazes akin to Netflix's Dark. I found myself obsessing over all of the optional notes and audio logs, hoping to stay on top of the twisting, deliberately convoluted plot. Cronos starts with a good sense of intrigue, and though I didn't feel attached to any characters by the end, I was invested in the grand scheme of things. While its beat-by-beat narrative is merely fine, its world building is much more interesting and had me
Wow, what
eager
is
to
that?
learn
That's a
more
character?
about the way the world succumbed to its sickness. One
Like
of
a
Cronos'
Elden Ring
coolest
boss.
visual touches is the glove-like machine the Traveler uses to extract the minds of people from the past. Long, wiry, metal, almost Freddy Krueger-like prods unfold from the Traveler's knuckles and dig into people's skulls. It's an unforgettable, uncomfortable sight and reminds me that even when Bloober Team's past games didn't often have memorable gameplay, they weren't short on horrific sights. Bloober Team swore to me several times across multiple interviews that the game isn't at all inspired by the COVID-19 pandemic, which really strains credulity early on when so many of the loose notes you'll find refer to things like social distancing, lockdowns, and crackpot conspiracies around vaccines. The studio told me at Summer Game Fest that any allusions at the real-life pandemic were subconscious at best. I don't see how, but nonetheless, taking my own experience with the pandemic
Christmas
into this
trees are
game
looking
heightened
crazy.
the intrigue. Our timeline didn't lead to mutated monsters, but I found it interesting to witness the Polish team grapple with the pandemic depicted as something like what I lived through, at least early on, set to the backdrop of its nation's Soviet era, exploring how communism would have led to different outcomes, even before you throw in the creatures made of multiple heads and many tentacles.
We demand freedom.
Where Cronos really
press
shines
A.
is in its combat. The Traveler is equipped with a number of guns, but nearly all of them are better used with charged up shots, meaning the second or
Okay,
two
so
between
they
charging
are
a shot and
charged-
hitting an
charged
enemy can
up.
be very tense. Monsters don't stand still while you line up your shots, and like many great horror games, this is not a power fantasy.
You have to get that. You gotta get that. You gotta upgrade that charge shot off rip.
Missed
you're
shots
dying.
are stressful because they waste ammo and allow the monsters to persist unabated. But such shots can be hard to avoid given the sway of your weapon and their charging times, combined with the sometimes complex enemy movement patterns. Even after many upgrades to my guns, I never became a killing machine. Most of
Okay,
my
never
greatest
mind.
combat achievements came in the form of creatively using gas canisters, exploding a small horde of enemies at once, thus saving a lot of bullets for my next struggle.
How do y'all feel about that? You upgrading your weapons, like basically, I don't know if he upgraded his weapons to the max, but say he upgraded his weapons to the max. I think that was already 1080. But say you upgrade your weapons to the max, and you're still not killing enemies super quick. How do y'all feel about that?
Like in the team's remake of Silent Hill 2, even fighting just two of Cronos' grotesque enemies at once can be a test of endurance, aim, and wit. A great feature of Cronos is that bullets can penetrate multiple enemies, so sometimes I'd kite multiple orphans into a line, then send a searing shot through their deformed, mushy
That's
torsos all at once.
That's
Featuring
good.
sci-fi versions of firearms like pistols, shotguns, SMGs, and eventually even a rocket launcher, all meant to be carried in a severely restricted inventory space, can be upgraded over time.
Reach your
game
impossible
was he playing?
Lenovo Legion.
Probably a fake
Cronos
game.
takes some obvious cues from Resident Evil. Thankfully, like in Capcom's series, you'll rarely have more than just enough ammo to eke out of a victory in any encounter. What ties all of this together is the game's merge system. The mutants can absorb the bodies of their fallen, creating compounded
that's
creatures that
super
double
dope.
or triple up on their different abilities. For example, if I killed an enemy that was able to spit acid at me and I didn't burn its body away, another enemy may approach it and consume it with an
That's
animation that looks
fire.
like guts and tendrils ensnaring with the dead. In one sequence, I'd regrettably allowed a monster to merge many times over, and it became this towering beast, the likes of which I never saw again. Partly because I tried my hardest to never allow such a hellish thing to come to fruition once more.
That's fire. I don't think I've ever seen that in a game before, where the enemies can combine with their dead enemies. That's dope, and they can keep on growing.
It's for this reason that
that's
combat
fire.
demanded I pay close attention, not only to staying alive, but when and where to kill enemies. Ideally, I'd huddle a few corpses near
He
each other
tried.
so when I pop my
tried
flamethrower,
to
its
combine
area
with that
of
one.
effect blast would engulf many would-be merged bodies at once. That's if the best case can be achieved, though. This is a horror game, so I often couldn't do this.
That shotgun did
Sometimes I was
damage.
forced to accept some merged enemies, which then meant dedicating even more of my ammo to downing them. Merged enemies don't just gain new abilities, they also benefit from a harder exterior, creating something like armor for themselves. Because of all of this, combat is difficult from the beginning all the way through to the final boss. It levels well alongside your upgrades, matching your ever-improving combat prowess with its own upward trajectory of tougher, more numerous enemies. While I want and expect some difficulty in a survival horror game, Cronos does include a few notable difficulty spikes that had me replaying moments several times over. After a while, these
my
would
goodness,
get
yeah.
frustrating, often because they felt like they demanded perfection, especially as it relates to preventing merges. If too many enemies emerged, I simply didn't always have enough ammo to kill them, and the game's dead space-like melee attacks are much too weak to rely on. Not to mention that virtually every enemy in the game is considerably more harmful when fought up close. Keeping my distance and resorting to firearms was key, but if all my chambers were emptied and enemies still roamed, it was likely I'd need to force my own death and try to kite and burn them more efficiently next time.
I don't know how I feel about that. You gotta be real precise. I don't like that perfection. I don't know how much I like that perfection type. Have to be basically my rounds have to be perfect like every time. If there's a specific time where a lot of enemies come, it has to be perfect. I don't know how I feel about that.
On two occasions, I even resorted to totally respeccing all my gun upgrades, forcing all my attention onto just 2 guns. This might sound like a clever workaround, but it felt more like I was brute forcing my way past a difficulty spike that was best not to have been there in the first place. Thankfully, these moments don't color most of the experience. Combat is unforgiving, but mostly not unfair.
I don't mind unforgiving combat. It's not unfair, like he said. If it's unfair,
Boss battles are very tough too, and I ended just about all of them in the blinking red screen phase of my health bar. These are achievements in a horror game. I ought to feel tested consistently, and Cronos' way of lining all its optional paths with both more rewards and more monster encounters quickly taught me that no savvy scavenger hunt for a few spare bullets or health kits would go unpunished. Though this formula became predictable over time, the game almost never gave me an optional path free of hazards. I didn't find it frustrating. I was glad to find a challenge around every corner. Like a lot of horror games, I find Cronos to be tense but not scary. I admit some of that is probably due to decades of desensitization as a massive horror fan, but some things do still unnerve me, and Cronos doesn't really hit in that way. Some of the enemies and hazards cause me to move slowly through its world in a way I greatly appreciated. Sometimes one wrong step would do me harm, like enemies crashing through walls and knocking me over if I wasn't careful. But mostly, its scare language is one of throwing more monsters at you, not leaving you to worry about when the next one might appear. Cronos tries toying with atmospheric soundscapes akin to what Bloober Team seemed to learn from working on the GOAT of horror atmosphere. But it doesn't enjoy similar accomplishments. Not that they would be easy for anyone to achieve. In this case, I feel that's because Cronos' world is much more aggressive overall than Silent Hill 2's. It doesn't leave space for things to just breathe as often. Sometimes the quiet is the horror. But as mentioned, Cronos is more akin to Resident Evil or Dead Space than the series this studio has already helped revive. It's survival horror for sure, but it leans
8. It's gonna give it an 8. That's my guess, y'all. What's y'all's guess? Guess. 7, 7.5, 6, 9, 10.
a bit more toward action than some of the genre's titans. Thankfully, a great soundtrack full of synth-heavy songs suits the world very well. It gives the game a sense of character that it sometimes lacks when judged on the merits of the actual people in its story. There are aspects of Cronos the team would be wise to improve upon with its next horror game, particularly knowing when not to challenge
Might be 7.5. I don't know how they GameSpot
leaving
does
me
it,
with a guttural sense of
8.
dread could go a long way to making future projects of Bloober Team as being on the level of its landmark remake project. Still, that's not to say what the team has done here is less than great in its own right. Cronos: The New Dawn is Bloober Team cementing itself as not just a studio obsessed.
I really like
with
that
horror.
when it's gets into games, bro.
Over a
I be
decade
knowing.
already. This is Bloober Team becoming a
I be
trusted
knowing.
voice in horror.
8 is great, bro. That is a perfect game to spend y'all $70 on right there. $70 for a game. It's still mind-boggling to me. But
For me.
and you can pet a cat, bro. 8. I told y'all. Let's see what they say about it. The pandemic didn't lead to mutated monsters. You sure about that? This is closest we can get as Dead Space fans. Yep, I'm ready. I still haven't finished Dead Space Remake. They gave it a 3+. You know, a lot of people can't do that math. They can't do that math. Why somebody say mathin'? IGN gave it a 7. Wow. I should have known IGN was gonna give it a 7. I'm about to look. IGN gave it a 7, y'all. Wow. What y'all think about that, man? New Dawn review. It was 16 minutes. Theirs was 12. I'm trying to look at some other than IGN. IGN probably would have gave me 12 ads right here. GameSpot gave me 1. Shout out to GameSpot. Y'all might be my new spot. No pun intended. But let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. About the 8. Cause I try to tell y'all. I don't want to say I told you so. But yeah, man. It's my first review reaction, and thought it was a really good one. I think he did a good job explaining the combat, the atmosphere at the end. He gave me the story. He talked about the suit, the AI, character. He talked about everything. I thought it was a good review. 8 is great. I thought the same thing. And yeah, man. I am about to do another review reaction, and that will be out right after this one. Hell is Us. I'm about to do the reaction to that. But yeah, man. Let me know what y'all want me to do, man. React, a game y'all want me to play, all that, man. Yeah, just let me know and I'll do it. But we about to hit 2,000 subscribers, man. Dang, I appreciate y'all, man. Smack that like button. I really appreciate it. And share and watch the whole video. I really appreciate it. Comment. I really want y'all to comment. That's the biggest thing. I'm just rambling. That's the biggest thing I want y'all to do is comment, because I just want to talk about games. Just want to talk about games with y'all. But man, please like, share, subscribe if you're new. If y'all did, if y'all are, man. Yeah.